Hi everyone, thank you for coming and listening to my presentation tonight. My name is Tiffany Asia, and this presentation is for my speech and communications class. Tonight I'll be talking about divorce and child health predictors. I chose this topic because I myself have gone through or been a child in going through divorce with my parents. So I want to ask you guys, how many of you know or have know people who have gone through divorce or are going through divorce or have gone through divorce yourselves? Yeah, we all know somebody, if not ourselves, right? And so now I'm going to share some statistics about divorce, and this is based on the U.S. Census. In the United States, in the year 1990, 4.7 people per 1,000 people got divorced. And then 19 years later, in 2009, 3.4 people per 1,000 people were divorced. So it kind of went down slightly, 4.7 to 3.4. But here's another interesting statistic. In 1990, the marriage rate in the United States was 9.8 per 1,000 people, which means in the same year, 5.1 people per 1,000 people were divorced. And then in 2009, the marriage rate was 6.8 people per 1,000 people, and the divorce rate was 3.4. Making that half of the marriage rate already being divorced in the same year, which is sad if you ask me. In my opinion, marriage shouldn't be taken lightly. After all, when we get married, we do recite the vows in sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, till death do us part, which means no matter the hardship you're going through, you should always try to work it out instead of giving up. And I know there's some other cases where violence and substance abuse is in the picture. First of all, we should all try to get counseled or help. But however, different people have different perspectives on marriage. Anyway, I'd like to share a personal story about myself and divorce. I'm the oldest of three, and my parents went through a divorce when I was in the 6th grade, making me 11 years old. And I thought that I had to take the role on as a parent myself, because my mother and father were off doing who knows what. So I took on the role of being a parent, so-called, and trying to raise my sister and brother the best that I knew how, with the help of my grandparents and family, of course. By doing that, I felt a lot of burden. And at the time, I didn't know that it took on a lot of effect on me. I would go to school and pretend like everything was okay. And nobody knew that my parents were getting a divorce. Everyone thought that everything was okay at home because I showed no sign of it. I covered it up, I guess, really well. But in the long run, when I became an adolescent, you could kind of see the effect and the toll that the divorce had taken on me. I've rebelled a lot, and there was a point in time where I bounced back and forth from both my parents' houses. And during divorce, these kinds of things happen. Most of them negative things that happen. So tonight I'm going to talk about the negative effects of divorce on children and the positive effects. Although we think of divorce as not so good, there are situations in which positive does come out of divorce. And then I will be closing after that. So some negative effects of divorce on children are the parent-child conflict and the parent-child relationship, child behavior, and transmission of relationship norms to offspring, which means that when the child gets older, they might repeat the same thing that their parents went through because they think that it's normal. So under parent-child conflict and parent-child relationship, you have less effective use of discipline because parents are so all over the place with what their current situation is. You have lack of cohesive relationships with your children, again, because you are so caught up in your situation. Also, harsh and inconsistent parenting because parents might be frustrated because of what is going on. Also, lack of relationship with non-custodial parent. Most times when parents or people go through divorce, they feel harsh feelings towards their other half, husband or wife. And there's also tension in the relationship, whether it's tension with the parent and the child or tension between the two parents. Another one is child behavior. The child, how I explained in my personal story, goes through a period of rebelliousness, most likely in the adolescent years. They might suffer academically, like being less likely to graduate. They might commit crimes and be incarcerated in most likely the adolescent years. You kind of see more effect during the adolescent years because adolescence, and when you're a teenager, you're starting to have your own way of thinking and your own ways. You might suffer, the child might suffer from psychological distress, such as sadness or anxiety, distraction, that they can't focus. There are many other psychological distress. And interpersonal difficulties, which means hard to keep a relationship with or communicate with others. Poor physical health. They might not, take care of themselves because they want to give up. Or they might start using a substance, whether it's drugs or alcohol. And the third negative effect might be transmission of relationship norms to offspring, meaning when you become an adult, you do the same thing that reflect what your parents and what you went through as a child. And it sends messages through to the child that divorce is normal and it's okay because they've seen their parents go through it. You also have lack of relationship commitment. You're hard to keep a relationship, or you might be abusive or violent. And you might suffer from possibility of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. So, as you can see, parents' divorce takes a lot of toll on the child and their outlook on life, and the relationships with others are changed forever. They might not become positive at all. But with the grace of God, I know the right ways and the wrong. And I want to upbring my children to know that even though you're having hardships in your relationship, to work it out. With that being said, I like to switch the roles over from negative to positive, because sometimes in divorce you get positive effects out of it. For example, like a violent relationship. If the child sees that his or her parents are going through such a violent relationship, getting out of it is positive, because the child won't see all the fighting and the violence in the house. So the positive, before I go on to the positive effects, this is a picture of a boy having to choose between his own parents. How hard is it to choose your mother or your father when they're the ones that's supposed to love you and care for you and show you guidance? This is another picture. A child, as you can see, is hurt and crying and wondering if his or her parents' divorce is because of them. So they question about, is it their fault that his or her parents, are getting a divorce. And this next picture is a shadow that you can see. Probably his or her parents went through a divorce, and it deteriorates the child as a person and a human being, most likely physical or emotionally or even mentally. So moving forward, positive effects of divorce on children might be, a positive effect might be appropriate parenting. So now that the parents are separated or divorced, the custodial parent can have a better relationship and more appropriate parenting for their child, which is better for their child. And then providing emotional support, which is very important, because with this, most children go through self-esteem issues, and they don't feel like a normal child with both parents do. The parent can also monitor their child's activities. They can actually concentrate on what their child is doing and what their child is going through or how they're feeling. And also the parent can discipline authoritatively, whereas if they're in a violent relationship, they can't really concentrate on disciplining their child the right way and in a loving way. They're probably just act out in anger because they're always angry with their situation. And then maintain age-appropriate activities and expectations. Sometimes going back to my personal story, I was always expected to think higher than what my age was. And I had to think as if I was an adult. And for some children, that's overwhelming and hard. Thankfully, I could take it all for the most part. And then another positive effect of divorce on children is you build child-parent relationship. When mommy and daddy are happy, obviously the child or the children are happy. When parents act mature and act as a parent, the child or children respect them more. They get more respect from their child, whether it's listening to them or following directions. When parents are no longer living together, children benefit because there are no more high conflict and hostility or tension in the house. And last, when parents no longer live together, the parent and child reap the benefits of a more intimate, quality, one-on-one time that they actually spend with their parent, whether it's the custodial parent or the non-custodial parent. Here is a picture or an example of appropriate parenting. The mother is engaging in activities with their child, positive activities with their child.